All right, it is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are the POP Baking Club. My name's Kathleen, for those of you who don't know. I'm a certified executive pastry chef, and I teach full-time on the internet, believe it or not. TikTok live every Wednesday and Saturday, and I do notes for Substack. So if you want to find me, all you have to do is Google the practice of pastry or pastry chef Kathleen, and you will find me. I am teaching an angel food cake. An angel food cake is a sponge cake. It is an egg foam cake where we whip egg whites and we add sugar to them, and there is so much to be learned from this recipe. And I've got the oven preheating. I have my ingredients pre-scaled right here behind me. I focus on ingredient function, time, temperature, and moisture, and how these things all work together. And I want to tell you that the most important ingredient in getting better at baking is patience. Because if you are not willing to give the ingredients time to do what they do, because they know how to do what they do, and they don't care if you're in a hurry or forgot to get them to room temperature, or don't care. They do themselves. And so we are going to pay attention to a lot of details tonight, because a lot of the recipes that I teach are basic, but they're all so highly affected by time, temperature, and moisture that you have to admit the ingredients are in charge. And that's what we do. We build one good baking moment at a time, and those good moments build on one another, and before you know it, you will have a wonderful baking practice that ekes into every aspect of your life, because kitchen skills are life skills, and you will get more thoughtful, patient, organized, better prepared. If you start to practice at things like baking, it'll help you in all aspects of your life. All right, so I'm gonna do a quick fit check, get my head going. I start out with an inexpensive, this is a $5 apron that I wear, a fresh, clean one every time I work. I tie it up nice and tight so that nothing can get caught in any equipment. I wear work clothes, which means they're sturdy and safe. I have kitchen clogs, short fingernails, no nail polish, no jewelry, minimum makeup, and I pull my hair back. Every single time I work, I start from this is my base. My home base. Now we're gonna check the oven real quick. I wanna make sure that we're in the right temperature range. I've already baked this cake once, and I wanna make sure that I have it right, because I changed a couple of things. All right, good, we're at 350. Let me wash my hands real quick before I get started touching all my food. I'm actually going to do something a little unusual tonight. I'm gonna get started, and then I'm gonna start talking about the recipe, because I wanna get the eggs going. So we're gonna skip through a little bit of the information and get the eggs on. I am doing an egg white meringue. That means no fat. And if you are cracking egg whites, I recommend that you do them when they're cold. They're much easier to separate, and then allow them to come room temperature. And I don't mean an hour. Sometimes home recipes say bring them out of the refrigerator an hour before you start. They will not be warm enough. But egg whites need to be warm. And in fact, it wouldn't even hurt them to heat them up just a little bit over a double boiler like you would a Swiss meringue. I am not going to, but if you are concerned about them being too cold, that's what I recommend. But when you crack an egg, if you get any egg yolk in the egg white, it will not whip. And if you've whipped your egg whites for 3 minutes and they're not doing anything, they're never, ever going to whip. So it's really important to be honest with yourself, and even develop a system where if you're not good at separating eggs, do one, add it to the container, do another one, add it to the container so you can separate out if you were to get even a speck of egg yolk in your egg white. On top of making sure that you crack your eggs properly, I am going to use white vinegar to clean. I don't want any residual fat on my tools, including my bowl, my whip, my spatula. If you're using a plastic bowl, which I will be using tonight, that holds more fat in a residual state than, let's say, metal does. So as an insurance policy, I am going to go ahead and use, because this is a rubber spatula with wood, and I use it for everything, so it could theoretically have quite a bit of fat in it, but I'm going to clean it off. And the last thing I'm going to clean is my plastic bowl, because I will be using a plastic bowl to fold my batter. So I'm going to clean it up just like that and put it back off to the side. White vinegar, it does a lot of jobs in the kitchen, and this is definitely one of them. But I have 348 grams of egg whites, okay? These have been sitting out all day. and they will be just fine. I'm gonna get these started on medium because they are going to take a really long time. And I think if you haven't watched any of my demo lectures, you might be surprised at how long they take because I don't whip things on high. I don't do anything fast when I'm baking. Welcome everybody. We are doing an angel food cake tonight, and I am using the Michael Suez textbook. It's called Advanced Bread and Pastry. And Michael Suez, he was a founder of the San Francisco Baking Institute, but this book is through the Culinary Institute of America, and it is a textbook. Now, I print out the recipes, and this recipe leads with grams. It's actually kilograms because it's a commercial formula. It is formulated for reliability, repeatability, and for a little bit more yield. So this should give you 4 10-inch tube pans. So I have made the yield for tonight 25%, which is 1/4, which will give us 1 10-inch tube. This is on such a low speed that what's happening inside is it's foaming. That's all we need to do right now. I want it to start to foam and to denature or break up the protein strands. If you've ever lifted up egg whites, they ploop, they grab onto each other. Those are the proteins. They're all like this. We need them to start to unravel. They kind of come apart and then they come back together and touch one another. And in between those connections, we get a sugar syrup from the water that lives inside the eggs, because an egg white is around 90% water. And the sugar that we're going to add is going to dissolve in there, which is going to create these bubbles. And these bubbles are air cells. They are going to hold air. And we don't want to create some big ones and some little ones, because then if one big one breaks, we get an unstable meringue, and it'll make a huge difference. But if they're all the same size approximately and even, because we went low and slow, then if one breaks, it won't be a big deal, because we want a stable emulsion, a stable meringue. That's what a meringue is. It's when you are making two things go together that don't normally go together. So we're incorporating air into this egg protein structure. We're adding sugar, and then later we'll fold in flour and more sugar, because there's no chemical leavener in here. No baking soda, no baking powder. So this is the recipe. Like I said, it's really big, but I converted it. It's already in grams. I took that recipe and I input it at thepracticeofpastry.com into the formulator. I put all of the ingredients in order in which they go into the recipe. And in this case tonight, we have egg whites, sucrose number 1, cream of tartar, vanilla, salt, sucrose number 2, and cake flour. This is our standard recipe. You'll see that's the one that's in the book. This is our 25% yield. This is the one we're doing. So if you scale this recipe out, you want to do this is your working yield. And these are the baker's percentage. 100% is always our flour. And tonight we're using cake flour. My recipes are on the link tree, and they correspond to the lecture demos that I do that live on YouTube. And then I make notes. Every time I do a lecture, I write out all the notes from the history of the recipe, category of the formula, the desired outcome, the method, ingredient function, and then the synergy and anything you really need to know about it. Observations that I made, things that I've learned along the way. I compared this cake to other egg foam cakes, things like a chiffon, a genoise, a European biscuit, a roulade, an American sponge. And so you can kind of see how they're all a little bit different, because we're moving from basic baking into the realm of pastry. When we get into pastry, we start combining concepts. So I don't really give you a recipe. That's not what textbooks do. It's not really what instructors do. We teach you concepts so that you can think when you look and analyze recipes. We give you tools to use to analyze the recipes, and we ask questions. And at the end of the notes this week, I have a few questions that you can ask yourself. Which of these ingredients provides structure, which provides tenderness, and which provides insurance? And think about those 3 things as we go through this recipe. This is something that's with my notes as well. I take all the baker's percentages and the ingredients, and I compare one recipe to another. And tonight, as I always do, I take at least 3 recipes and I triangulate them, and I look at the one that I think will teach the most. And in this case, I ended up looking at the total sucrose percentage, baker's percentage, And I'm looking for outliers. I'm looking for reasons to not use a recipe, but also when you teach a recipe, you want it to work, to be consistent, to be able to understand it so that when people have questions or problems, you can understand what they are asking and also give a really good solution or response. This is included with the notes. And what I looked at tonight was the Suez, the Professional Baking by Wayne Gislin, and the Cake Bible by Rose Levy. And I chose tonight's recipe because it is the most stable and sturdy. It's going to give us a really good result. I also always map out what I'm going to do, and these are my ingredients. I'm going to sift. These ingredients are going to get combined, and then I'm going to start whipping my whites, adding sugar, and they're all going to get combined in a way, put into a pan and bake. And that is the angel food cake. So I'm going to put my book aside. If you really want the details and you want to keep them, the notes live on Substack. So you can go back and look at all the notes that correspond to all the lectures I've done over the last year, and you can start to compare. We've done a roulade. We did a sponge cake by Rose Levy. We did another sponge cake. So we've done all of these egg foam cakes that you can start to look at and say, why is this one different? I mean, some use whole eggs, some use egg yolk and egg white. They all do something a little bit different. So you don't want to just learn how to make an angel food cake. You want to understand where it lives in the family tree of different formulas. And you know, I didn't really know this. I'm from the Midwest in the United States, and I happen to love angel food cake. Like, I have a special place in my memory for angel food cake, and as I started researching it, it turns out that it really is Midwestern. Even though it kind of started out in Pennsylvania in the 1800s when they invented the tune pan and they needed a recipe to sell it. And so somebody developed the angel food cake. Later in the 1920s came the chiffon cake. The chiffon cake has oil in it. Many of these foam cakes have fat in them. This cake does not. So in my household growing up, angel food cake had no fat, so it was always seen as sort of like a diet dessert. And that's why it was kept in my house oftentimes. Now, as I've grown older, and I am a prolific reader of labels and nutrition labels, and I've always kept my eye out for fat, for cholesterol, and salt, because I'm sensitive to it. But now that I'm older and I understand the role that sugar plays in our health, I think that to understand that this is a high sugar dessert is very important for people to know. And I have seen people try to make angel food gluten-free and make it dietetic or no sugar or low sugar, and it's not that easy. So it's kind of a interesting recipe. So got it going. It's gained volume a little bit. I'm going to show it to you, and then I'll show you the other ingredients we're going to be adding. So you can see it's gotten a little more in volume, and I have a little bit around the edges. All right. So I haven't added anything to this yet. You can see some of these egg proteins are collecting around the edge. So I want to move them in here. All right. So I did not add the sugar yet because you don't need to. Let me turn it back on medium. A lot of people ask, what number is medium? It depends on your machine. Do you know that every single machine has a different speed? I could be in a room full of expensive Hobarts and everyone turns theirs to 1 and they're all the same speed, and then somebody's is super fast. So medium is how it sounds. It's in the middle. This is high. This is low. It's just kind of moving. That's low to medium. This is medium. I scaled out my ingredients, and I always take the recipe and compare my ingredients to the recipe to verify that I have it right. And I already have 348 grams of egg whites. I have my number 1 sucrose is 86 grams of sugar right here. I have a little bit of vanilla in there. Cream of tartar at 3.5 grams. I use a mini digital scale for that. And vanilla extract. And then I'm going to put my flour over here with the second sucrose, which is 258 grams, and the salt, because those are going to get sifted together. And I'm going to sift them right here on this parchment. So now that this has gained just a little bit of volume, I'm going to start to add the first sucrose in here. All right. This is a controlled use of sugar. where we are adding enough to make a meringue that we will then fold quite a bit more sugar into. Look at this. This goes into the meringue, and this is going to get folded in. But we're going to disperse it into the flour so it doesn't just get all weighed down. So remember that this egg has a lot of water in it. So I added 1/3 of the sugar, okay? Let me get my tammy. I'm gonna take my flour. This is cake flour. We are using cake flour because cake flour has less protein than all-purpose flour. And we want this cake to be really, really soft and tender. So we don't want it to be chewy. More protein, like bread, like an artisan bread, you can see that it gives you this chew and this stretch. We don't want it that way. We want it tender, little tiny air bubbles, sort of a tight crumb, but very soft, very tender. And I'm putting all of my ingredients off to the side in case I make a mistake. They're all right here so I can retrace my steps. All right, so I have the flour and the salt, and now I'm gonna put the sugar right over the flour, and I'm going to sift it. And I'm going to add 1/3 of the sucrose to this. I'm going to stop it really quick and just stir it so the edges are nice and clean. But there are many reasons why you don't just add the sugar all in at the beginning. You have to allow it to get some air. Otherwise, when you pour the sugar in, it's going to weigh it down, and you're going to have to over whip it in order to add the air. So you just let it get going. Go slow. Go slow and then start to add the sugars. So I am going to, let's see. Oh, I was supposed to add the cream of tartar to the sugar. So I'm going to do that now. Cream of tartar. This is 3.5 grams. Cream of tartar is a powder. It's a byproduct of the winemaking industry, and it's an acid. And yes, you can use lemon or vinegar or other things to add an acid to your egg whites, but cream of tartar is stronger. It's not variable. You know what you're adding, and you're not adding extra liquid, because when you add lemon, it's really not that acidic. It's less than half of the cream of tartar, and it has water. So we want to keep this nice and dry. It's a meringue. The more moisture you add, the less stable your meringue is. I'm going to keep scraping this. I'm going to show you what it looks like. So this is very liquid. See that? It's just running out. I'm going to speed this up just a tiny bit now that I have the cream of tartar in there. Now, why do we need the cream of tartar? The cream of tartar is not foolproof. It doesn't mean you can whip the egg whites forever and ever and not worry about over whipping, but it is a bit of an insurance policy because it actually, I'm mixing this up just a little bit more. I don't want to have to mix this once it goes in the bowl because it will weigh down my meringue, and we want to maintain all the air we've developed. I just want to give it a little bit of help. It's also why I like the parchment. Lets me work on it like this. All right. Move this over here. So the cream of tartar makes it so that it changes the protein so that they're not in as much of a hurry to unravel and grab on. So it builds in a little bit of time. And with these protein strands, when you are whipping them, if you continue to whip them until they're fully stretched and completely aerated, that's why if you do it on high, you're going to be releasing moisture, you're going to be losing water, and you're going to be getting those proteins stretched so far they're like this, then when you put them in the oven, they can't go anywhere. And when you put this cake in the oven, you want it still to have room to go. So we're building a nice meringue that still has a lot of moisture and has a lot of spring left in the protein strands. And so the cream of tartar is an insurance policy that we will not overwhip. Professionals tend to whip much less than the home bakers, and sometimes it looks under-whipped. The difference is we are not afraid of that being a little bit loose because medium peak is not stiff. It slumps. It's not soft, but it's not stiff. And so if your meringue starts to look grainy, you have over whipped it, and you have actually, just like with bread dough, when you see it's broken and shaggy, if you mixed your dough for too long, you'll see it broken because you've broken those protein strands. You've overworked them. So we want to find that edge between under whipped and not quite enough before it goes in the oven, and over whipped, where we've broken it, it's grainy, it's dry, it's not going to stretch in the oven, it's not going to be delicious. Because we don't have baking soda or baking powder to make this lift. The steam that's going to be created from the water, the moisture that lives inside the egg, is going to create lift. The lightness of all of the aerosols that we've created are going to give us the crumb and the lift. As that moisture starts to expand, the cake will set, and when we take it out of the oven, we are going to cool it upside down so that that cell structure stays open as it dries out and solidifies and cools. And that's how you get that lovely texture that for an angel food cake you should be able to squeeze, but it should bounce back. Okay, this is going to be very white, although I do have some vanilla bean sugar mixed in with my regular sucrose, and that's going to tinge it a little vanilla beany, a little speckled, a little brown, but it should be glossy white, sweet, springy, not gummy, and it should hold its shape. It shouldn't fall back down when it cools. That's why we turn it upside down and why we need to bake it long enough. All right, so I'm gonna take my ingredients right here, and we're gonna add the vanilla bean paste in last. Let's take a look at our meringue. So I think the only way to know if a meringue, how it's coming along, is to take it off the bowl. Now, obviously, it's still dripping, but to check a meringue's strength, you actually have to be able to turn it this way. So if you do this and then you try to do that and it comes off, it's still too soft. So we're gonna keep going. Turn it to medium. So our 2-pan is not going to be sprayed because of the way that it's leavened, because it's a meringue. As it goes up the side of the pan, it needs to grab on. As it moves up, it dries out on the edge of the pan where the pan is hot, and it kind of sticks, and that way more of the batter can move up and keep building until it pulls up and holds itself up just a little bit. So if you spray it, it won't be able to do that. So your meringue should look shiny when you look in here. You shouldn't walk away from this process, and you can see it's already taken about 20 minutes for this, and we're not even close to it being stiff enough. Once it's ready, we are going to add the combined flour and extra sucrose in 3 additions, and I'm going to fold it in. The first 2 additions I'm going to do with the whip. That will be really gentle on the meringue. It will preserve the air. And then I'm going to use a spatula for the last addition. That allows me to check the bottom of the bowl, to make sure there are no streaks, and to make sure that everything's incorporated. If I make sure everything's incorporated in the first 2 additions, I am going to overwork this cake, and that batter is going to be deflated. So our whole goal is to grow air cells, to maintain the air cells, and then get them in a nice hot oven so that the steam can be created and we get this nice, beautiful cake. I could add the dries to this bowl and fold them in, but I am going to move this into a shallow, low bowl. And I'm using a plastic bowl, but if you are concerned that you have a bowl that has a lot of residual fat in it, I would use a metal bowl that you've cleaned with white vinegar. But I'm going to use this plastic bowl. I know it's very clean. I've cleaned it with soap, and then I use the vinegar to make sure there's no fat. If you skip these stages, if you think you can whip cold egg whites, or your tools have not been cleaned with vinegar, or you're going to whip this on high, or fold it in and basically end up stirring in your dries and deflating the whole thing, and then waiting too long between when you finish your batter and when you get it in the oven, you will probably get a cake that people would say tastes fine, but you will not get excellence, and you also won't be defining the category. You won't be defining and internalizing good habits that teach you what is right. Because the more you know what is right, the more you can apply this to everything, from making macaron shell, Italian meringue, a Swiss meringue, anything that includes whipping eggs. I mean, Dave makes an orange pancake for our holidays that, you know, you whip the egg whites and you fold them in with the dries and the yolks. This creates a lighter, lovely pancake because it's got applesauce in it, it's very heavy, it needs lightness. So these techniques aren't advanced. They're actually very foundational and basic, but you have to do them right. You know, a lot of people like to talk about how our grandmothers didn't need recipes and our grandmothers didn't do this. They absolutely did. They learned how to do it right through years of watching other people tell them how to do it right and being tutored and trained one person to the next. So that is what we're looking to do. We're looking to transfer the information so that we are doing a good job. I'm telling you, it matters, and if you take your time, you're going to have a better product. And the next time you have a recipe that does this method, you'll understand it better and you'll do a better job. All right, this is what it looks like when I pull it out. This is verging, it's not stiff, but this is medium, okay? You pull it up and you do this, it falls like that. All right, so this is a medium, we're good. So I am going to, I did not add the vanilla. I am going to add it in now, which sounds crazy, but I don't want to whip this anymore. When you're alone, you should watch, not be chatting like I was. All right, I'm gonna get rid of my machine. I'm gonna be using this just to save on tools, but I'm gonna take this meringue, beautiful meringue, and I'm gonna put it into this bowl. When you fold ingredients into other ingredients, you need a shallow, wide bowl. If you try to fold into this bowl, which you will see, it's not like people don't advertise it, this is how they do it. But you will see they're doing this. There's the only way to do it is to stir. There's not enough room. For a large, wide bowl, we will be going down and in and rotating the bowl. This will help, I'll show you. So this is my flour and sucrose mixed in. I'm going to add 1/3 to the top of the meringue. Sprinkle it around. And then I'm going to take this, and you could use another whisk if you want to do dishes, but I'm just going to do this. And I'm just placing it in and lifting. There's no stirring. The rotation of the bowl is the key. So this is by no means all the way mixed in, but I'm going to stop. I'm going to add the next addition. And I'm going to do the smallest addition by eyeballing it to the last, because we don't want to overmix the last. So you can see how this is preserving the beautiful meringue. I mean, look at that. You can see that there, and it's not dry. If you overmix your meringue, you will not be able to fold in the dries. They won't. They will get rejected. That's what happens. All right, so as soon as I see that it's getting a little bit shiny, and there are no major clumps or anything, get rid of this. And then this is the last flour sugar addition. And take a spatula, straight down, lift, straight down, just like this. And I really just go around the edge, oops, turning and lifting up. So there's no going over or stirring. I'm just lifting, and this is great because I can feel the bottom of the bowl, and if anything is sticking. Lift this up. Now this is where I need to look around the edge of the bowl and make sure that I don't have any dry bits at the top. And I'll finish folding, and I am looking for streaks of flour, things that are not incorporated, chunks, and I'm also feeling to make sure nothing is stuck to the bottom of the bowl. Okay, that's it. This is what it looks like. Beautiful. You can even see the vanilla bean. So I want to get this in the oven very quickly. This is the tube pan, but it's a removable pan with a tube center, which creates more surface area so the interior cooks nicely. It's aluminum, and this can create leakage, so you need to get this into the oven quickly. All right, here we go. Some people will use a scoop to help prevent deflating it, but I think if you just move quickly, that is your best bet. If you are using the recipe out of the book and you want to make 4 of these, just keep them. You're going to need to use a scale, and you're going to scale them at around 800 grams each. All right, make sure it's flat, and then we are going to go put this in the oven. Clean up the tube. All right, let's take this in the kitchen. I want this to go in the oven. I have an oven thermometer. It's at 350. I don't have convection. Oops, I need to set the timer. I'm going to set the timer for 30 minutes. I do have a cake I made here earlier today that I will show you. So we have the cake in the oven. Now I made some vanilla sugar the other day and I got a little carried away. And I made this cake with the vanilla sugar, and it honestly was too much. And I also tried using the convection setting on my oven. It wasn't hot enough. So I learned a lot. I'm going to cut this up and show you. But one of the reasons we need to have a cake for this is because this cake, when it comes out of the oven, needs to go onto a wine bottle upside down for 2 hours to cool. And then when you unmold it, it needs to sit on the cooling rack for another 20 minutes before you slice it. You can use a bundt pan for this cake. Absolutely. It is nice to be able to remove it with the tube coming out. That's why, because it does get a little bit stuck. The tube pans, generally, if you buy an aluminum one, they do not need to be expensive or fancy. If you were to use my notes and get really technical, there are a few things I think that are interesting. If you want to, I don't know how many of you are from the Midwest. If you're from the Midwest, you know this is a cake that's served at potlucks and at picnics, and everybody brings berries on the side and a little chantilly cream or something like that. Or maybe they chop it up and do a mixture of whipped cream and fruit. But you can take, this is a somewhat of a neutral cake. It's kind of like a strawberry shortcake effect, you know, slice it a certain way and it's bright white, and use contrasting colors. If you want to make it a little more modern, you could sprinkle, you know, a grated freeze-dried fruit over the top, or to contrast the sweetness, some shavings of chocolate. You don't want to use heavy things like buttercreams or heavy frostings or like really thick chocolate syrup or caramel syrup. You want things to be light. It's light. Okay, so egg whites are separated eggs, obviously. And to separate an egg is way easier to do when they're cold. They stay together better. You are less likely to have the yolk break and contaminate the egg whites. But once they are cracked, you have to then scale out what you need and then bring them to room temperature when you're ready to use them. If you think about egg whites, when you cook one and you put it into the pan, it's all liquid. You know there's water in there and there's protein. You can't see it, and so much in baking is like what we imagine. And when you cook it, it starts to go from clear to opaque. It goes from translucent to you can't see through it. It goes from liquid, falls through your hands, to it's firm, you can pick it up. The same thing happens in the oven. The same thing happens when you whip an egg. You are denaturing the proteins. When you lift up egg whites and they're all gloopy, and there's a big, long, glooping strand of them, it's all of these protein strands hanging onto one another. And so when you break them up, you start to denature them. They start to come apart. And then as you whip them and they relax even more, and they're room temperature, they are more likely to relax and come together and stretch. Just like our muscles stretch better, and our muscles are protein. Our muscles are more likely to stretch without tearing, more likely to stretch further if we're warmed up. That is why when you rise bread, when you allow it to proof, it needs to be in a warm environment. That is for the yeast, but also it's so that those proteins are relaxed and they stretch. We want the same things to happen in our egg white. We want them to stretch and make these connections that hold bubbles, that hold air. And some of this cake, what is being done is we get this rise out of the steam, pushing everything up, and then the structure from the protein in the egg white holds the cake. Let me slice some of this cake. And I talk a lot about using serrated knives for pastry, and really angel food cake is number one. You have to. This cake is a little too short, and I know the temperature in my oven was not right. And so I'm gonna cut it and show you the crumb. A convection oven, I want to make the adjustment. This recipe in my notes says 310 convection. That is assuming that you have an oven that we already know is convection and that you put it to 310. Typically, if a recipe calls for a 350-degree oven, but you only have convection, you need to take your oven down by 25 degrees. This oven does it for you. And so it just was never right, because you think you're setting it for 310 convection and then it lowers it by 25. And then you go up and it was like, forget it. I want to be able to control the temperature using an oven thermometer and using my common sense. So what I decided to do with the cake that is in the oven right now is to put it at 350, regular oven, no convection. In a commercial setting, convection ovens are a little different than the convection ovens in your home. Oftentimes, they're a rotating oven. So it's like you get all this really nice airflow, and it's very, very hot, very even. Even when you open the oven, it stays very sturdy. And so anyway, you're going to have to test your situation and make sure that it's good for you. I will be sawing this cake. You do not want to push down and drag the crumb. You definitely need to use the knife to do its job. Let the tools work for you. So again, this is not brown sugar. These are vanilla beans, and I used too many. But it does have a nice bubble structure, but you can see how it's a little tighter down here. That means that it got enough to get the bubbles going, but not enough to keep them going. An oven, it's really important that in an oven, you get an oven spring. So if you're putting your cake into an oven that isn't hot enough, you're not gonna get that initial spring. You've got to get that oven spring going. So the ones that I have in there, it's gonna get taller, it's going to have nice open crumb. Now the one good thing I've noticed about this, and let me cut another slice, is that there's no tunneling. If you have tunneling, which are those long holes that show up in cake, you have overmixed something. But these are pretty even bubbles. Again, I know that a lot of this is because of the oven temperature, but you can even see that it bounces back, all right? So I did, after I added all these vanilla beans, and I did process them in my food processor, I was like, uh-oh, is there an effect? And no, there's not. Using super fine sugar in an angel food cake is a good thing. However, not too fine, you don't want to go into powdery, and I did sift it and everything, but there is a point where the vanilla beans is just too many. I think there's just too many, and they really affect the flavor, and it's not really delicious. So I'm gonna redo that test, and we'll get to see what comes out of the oven and how much fluffier. We're gonna look to see that it's a lot fluffier because we need oven spring. I'm from Iowa and never liked angel food cake, but it's super popular, LOL. Yep, Audrey, it is popular. And I didn't know it was a Midwestern thing because I just thought everyone liked it or grew up on it, but yeah. Angel food cake is not for everybody, but I think for people who like it, like I love it. It is nostalgic. I think that's the right word for it. So do you find it makes a difference if you add sucrose at the beginning of whipping versus streaming it in? Absolutely, absolutely. And I know this not just because of this cake. If I've made Italian meringues, I ran a cake business. I made Italian meringues all the time. If you add all the sugar in right away, you will never get the volume that you will get if you go slowly. Now, if you want to start adding the third, get it foamy, let it go a minute, and then add the third and wait a little bit, add the next third, and so on, you'll be fine. Some people like to add it earlier because they're so concerned about the sugar dissolving. I am less concerned about that than I am about aeration. If I had to rate which is more important, I would say it's the aeration. And to get it to get aerated enough, if you've weighed it down a ton, you're going to have to go so long or so fast that it's going to get dry. And then you're not going to have a tender, delicate cake. I personally love angel food cake and just treat it like strawberry shortcake. For me, it's interchangeable. It's not like you can't take your fork and cut into it like a biscuit, you know, that's gonna flake. But you can, but it's different. It's different. And some people, as you saw, do not like angel food cake. But for those who do, really love it. I kind of like, if you can, offer both. So the vanilla bean that I used, I take my vanilla beans after I use them to make other things. I rinse them if need be, and then I dry them out, and they look like this. This is an old vanilla bean I split in half. I used it, and then I rinsed it, and it dried. So now it is dry and brittle. So you add sugar here, and then you just keep adding your spent vanilla beans, and then eventually you put them in a food processor, and then you sieve them out. Typically I use that. I'll tell you, it is so good when you're doing just whipped cream, like a chantilly. Amazing, because you don't have to add vanilla. But it was too much, like it's very vanilla-y. But it's a good way to reuse and repurpose food, always looking to make sure you don't just throw things away or use them once. Try to get more uses out of them. Yes, so this is the cake. This is not the one that, this is an experiment. You're not supposed to do what I'm doing, but this is the one that I made today, and it's a tester. So it's not tall enough. It's got the vanilla bean sugar, and the oven temperature was off. So I made some adjustments tonight. I used mostly plain sucrose and put it in a hotter oven, and we'll see how it goes. I think it's gonna be taller. It tastes a little bit weird. Doesn't smell weird, but it tastes a little bit weird. One of the things about passing on traditions and really sharing what you learn is that you learn to utilize everything. All of your leftover egg whites are used to make meringue, and these are leftover ingredients. Now that we have leftover egg yolks, because if you make this and you crack all your eggs and you used all these egg whites, you need to use your egg yolks. So you can make one batch of the angel food cake and have enough egg left over to make the lemon curd, because lemon curd will look beautiful on the side of this. So yeah, there's such things as too much of everything, even vanilla, which sounds crazy because I love vanilla. So when you do your meringue, you want to bring it to the right medium peak, because when it goes into the oven, we need more lift than this. We need the moisture left in the meringue to really lift it up and create the steam. If you've whipped your egg whites too much, whipped out all the moisture, strained those proteins all the way, then you're not going to get good lift. So protein strands are like fingers. They're stretchy, they're malleable. They start out all like irregular, and then they kind of unravel and disconnect, and then they start to get aligned, and they kind of connect here and there. But they find alignment, and it's the same with protein no matter whether you're doing bread or if you're doing a meringue. And it's important that they're warm, because when they're cold, they're not going to be stretchy, and in fact might not even hold air. So if you notice that your meringue is not catching air, first of all, if it's not at all and it's still foamy, it's got fat in it, you need to start over. Secondly, you could put your bowl of whites over some warm, not hot, not boiling water, but like a double boiler, where you whisk it until you feel it get a little bit warmer. And that'll help them loosen up, just like we loosen up before we start exercising. Yes, you are in pastry school. I am not joking. If you came to my classroom and today was Angel Food Cake Day, you would learn the same thing. And I would be equating it to all the other things we did with a meringue. And when you do a meringue, you need to think about, what are you going to be using it for? You know, you need it to hold however much air, hold however much strength to get you all the way to the end. So a medium peak when you're folding in the dries and then getting in the oven is good. Oftentimes recipes, and they'll, you know, like I said, I think that the recipe books they talk down to the home baker. They tell you to firm peak it and all that kind of stuff. That's just to build in this insurance policy so that you feel good about it. But it's not good to have a firm peak, even though it feels good to you and you're like, oh, this is a stiff peak. Same with cream. Cream should be jiggly. It shouldn't be firm and like stiff and overdone. I mean, you're right on the edge of making butter. So everything in this thoughtful practice that we are building is building patience and understanding that more is not better, allowing ingredients to do what they do, stepping out of the way and understanding what lives inside the ingredient and what it needs, not what you need. Because a lot of times I'll see people say, oh, I love your cookie, but I just couldn't, you know, I didn't have the patience to wait for it to hydrate. Well, then it's not the same cookie. These recipes in one person's hands turned out, you know, they turn out like this, and in another person's they turn out great. And the difference is time, temperature, moisture. So when you look at an egg white and it's 90% water approximately and 10% protein, if you know that, that's what lives inside your egg white. That's interesting. Just like if you know that when you look at cream, it's not just a liquid, it's actually an emulsion of a lot of water, fat globules, proteins, dairy sugars, all emulsified together by nature. So that's fascinating. And I find the ingredient function portion of all of this fascinating. That is also why I am not afraid to show you when things don't go exactly as planned, or if I'm testing something, or if I've done something for the first time. My greatest variable in this situation is the oven. I have an oven thermometer, but I'm constantly, when I'm doing a recipe I either have never done in this oven or in a long time, I'm constantly dealing with the variable that I don't enjoy. So if I were to sell this cake, and the next one's gonna be so much whiter too. If I were to sell this cake at a coffee shop or something like that, I would dial it in and I would take notes and write down exactly what the oven setting is. I'd verify it with an oven thermometer. I'd get my time exactly right, and I would build in consistency and stability over time. That is the difference between having products and things, your signature bakes that people like and that they don't. I mean, how many times have you gone to a restaurant and you're like, it's not as good as it normally is? Or if I have a dessert or some baked item that I really look forward to and it's not as good as normal, it just doesn't hit it, you know? And then you have that craving still. It's like if you go to get your favorite pizza and they're off that night and you're like, didn't get the pizza nut. Like, I gotta go get the pizza. So that's how baking is. We want it to be consistent every single time. I don't recommend using pasteurized egg whites unless you have to. And if you do, look for the kind that don't have stabilizers in them. The stabilizers are meant to whip up really fast. If you've ever used them, you know that not even 2 minutes on the whip, a medium, and they're done. They're like firm peak. That's the stabilizer that they add to it. You know, they're weird. I don't like them. I like whole eggs, and if you can use older eggs, you've got some old eggs in there, make a meringue. I mean, you can make a simple meringue or a French meringue and make pipe cookies and do all kinds of great things with them. Sometimes people need to use pasteurized eggs for health reasons, if it's going to be raw or whatever, but I don't like the liquid eggs that are in a container. So today I did put the vanilla bean paste in just to see, and it's just too much vanilla. It's not good. So tonight it's mostly regular sucrose and I use vanilla bean paste, but I shouldn't have added the vanilla bean paste, but I wanted to know what does too much vanilla look and taste like, and it's not good. All right, let's go check on our progress here. I'm not gonna open this long because I just wanna ascertain what's going on. Ooh, see? Ooh, okay, that looks really good. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Whew. All right, so let's give it 5 minutes. So one of the things also that could have happened today, and again, I don't wanna scare you guys off, but I don't think anybody's going to be doing the vanilla bean sugar right away. Mine had so much in it, honestly, I do think the particles weighed it down. So please do not, learn what I'm talking about, make a decision, but don't take anything that I say and be like, oh, this is how it has to be done or whatever. Well, it needs more time, but I think 10's too much. So typically this cake takes between 30 and 40 minutes. It got a really nice rise. There's some cracks in it. It's browning very nicely. And in fact, I could have probably turned it down just a little bit. But 5 minutes is a fair amount for me to check it. I'm gonna turn it down just a notch and take one more quick look. Let's see what the temp is. Yeah, it's looking good. It's not too dark. So you do want a little bit of a crust. I'm gonna put 5 minutes back on it. So when you pick a time, you don't want too much, you don't want too little. If I'd put 10 minutes and I only needed 7, I would have dried the cake out. We are always looking for the edge between done and not done. The outside of a cake needs to have a crust. It needs to be brown. It has to have color. This cake needs a healthy crust. And if you look at the cracks, it should be heavily cracked. It's wet inside. So what we need is for it to get nice and big, dry out enough, and then as it finishes, it will deflate just a little bit. We'll take it out, and that's why we'll flip it upside down and look cool. Sucrose is it's table sugar, and it's a baseline for all other sugars. It's not always cane sugar. Sometimes it's beet sugar. I prefer cane sugar, but yes, it is table sugar. That is a reference to a baseline sugar, which is a certain particle size. All right, let's go see. All right, I don't use a thermometer. My notes do have a temperature in it, but I don't. All right. I am going to give this another 3 minutes. And one of the reasons I don't use the thermometer, I don't use the, the cake thing, I want to learn what to look for. And if I'm wrong, I take notes and I dial it in and I learn. All right. Here we go. This is what I'm looking at inside here. It looks good to me. I'm going to close this, clear my oven, and I'm going to show you what I do. So I am going to take this wine bottle. I'm going to flip this upside down. Here we go. So it's going to sit like that for 2 hours. But I can already tell it's way taller. You run such a strict program, but that's why I love it here. Thanks. So it's not strict. I'm not strict. The ingredients are strict. The ingredients, they really, I can't stress enough. Ingredients don't care. They don't. They don't care. There is no ego in baking because you're not in control. And that's the thing. I'm actually somebody who's self-aware enough to know that you have to relinquish the control. You have to bring out the most in the ingredients, respect them. That's what it is. And so, yeah, a lot of people, I'm having fun, I'm having a good time. That's great. Just don't expect the best results. And, and I've said, nobody's going to tell you your baking's not good. They're not. I've been in professional programs. Teachers can't even criticize people. It's like getting constructive criticism is virtually impossible. It really is. You are going to have to begin to be more objective about your own work. You need to analyze it with the same approach as I would. Look at the texture, look at the color, break it down, and stop with the personal opinion. Stop with the, subjectiveness and all the knowing of what you did wrong. Just take a look at it. I can say to you, this is too short, it didn't get enough rise, I didn't use the right temperature in the oven, too much vanilla bean in the sucrose. I could go on and on. That's okay. This new one is going to be 10 times as good. So if you become more subjective, take the emotion out of it, you will actually be able to do some constructive criticism of your own work and be able to tell when something is good or not. Yes, it is hard not to be hard on yourself though. Julia Child said you never hand someone a dish and say, I didn't bake it right, or it didn't, and I left out, and I forgot. You just give it and let it speak. And I have said many, many times that our baking, our desserts are a complete sentence. It's just like if you give someone a short story you've written and you have to explain to them what happened, you did not achieve your goal. When you hand someone a dessert or something you've baked, and you've analyzed it, you think it's good, you know what its strengths and weaknesses are, you know what you had to mitigate and what you didn't, you just give it to somebody and let them enjoy it or tell you. You shouldn't have to explain. Sometimes people are really, really smart and they'll say, I taste, and you're like, you're exactly right. How did you know? It's like an undertone. And yeah, it's kind of fun. It will come out, believe it or not. I'm tempted to take it out, and I might after we do the poll as it cools. It's pretty cold in this room. I turned the heat down. I think I'm going to take the pan off but leave it upside down so you guys can see. So the category of angel food cake is a lean foam cake, because lean means no fat. It's an egg white foam, no yolks, no chemical leavening. The structure comes from the egg white. So we want a tall, fully expanded in the pan, even rise, no collapse after inversion, a fine consistent air cell, and a pure white interior. We want it to spring back when pressed. We want it tender but not dry, and we want a slight chew but no rubberiness. If you've ever had a rubbery angel food cake, that's not right. It's not supposed to be that way. So it should feel weightless in your hand. This does not. Well, it does. It feels pretty light, but I feel like I can feel the vanilla beans. Okay, so it should melt in your mouth a little bit, but then kind of resist at the end. It should be soft but not mushy. Lightly sweet. It should be a clean finish. If you have an eggy taste or a metallic taste, you have overworked your egg whites. You have over whipped the eggs. And it's kind of like if you've ever eaten a yeast donut that's really excellent. It's like you take a bite and it melts, and then you're like, you want another one, and it disappears. It's like cotton candy. That is a little bit how an angel food cake should taste. Bless you. So we have 2 sugars. And I want to say, one of the things I also did not enjoy about the Rose Levy Berenbaum angel food cake recipe that was in the Cake Bible is I don't like when recipe, the top part where all of the ingredients are, has one measurement for something, and then down in the instructions it says half and half. And if you notice, I used a lot less sucrose to whip the meringue than the larger quantity that went into the flour that gets folded in at the end. Half and half is a very high ratio of that sucrose going into a meringue. It creates a very tender, delicious sweet cake and whatnot, but also very finicky and fussy. And I think a lot of people could miss the direction. When you're looking at baker's percentage, of course, you take that 300 grams and you get 150 in with the egg and 150 that gets folded in later. And the total is based on the 300. But I like to know that the first sucrose was 70% and the second sucrose was 208. That, it just tells me so much. And that's all, it's all in the baker's percentage in the formulator. And then here, this is how I decided. The total sucrose is what did it for me. The cake we did tonight, the total sucrose was 277 baker's percentage. The Gislins was 266. Those are very, very close. But Rose Levy's was 300% total sugar, but most of it went in the meringue. Interesting. Also, the whites were at 480% for the Cake Bible one, and for the ones we're doing are around 280. That to me was like, oh, it was way off. Obviously, that's why I use more sugar in there. Same amount of cream of tartar, and then 20% vanilla, which I thought was very, very strange. There's a lot of those kinds of differences that can make this cake so delicate you can't even handle it. So we have all the ingredients that went into this cake tonight. You always want to scale your ingredients. You want to bring them all to room temperature. You want to sift when asked to sift. You want to add things slowly when asked to add them slowly. You don't want to over whip, or it'll be hard to fold things in and you risk collapse, which we don't want to do. Synergy. This cake works because we're balancing 5 things: egg white expansion, sugar stabilization, acid reinforcement, and minimal flour support, which sets the structure, and a controlled heat, which I did not have today when I baked it. Yeah, I think Rose's angel food cake looks interesting. It just looks a little too delicate for me, but I am interested. I did make it years ago, but is it so much lighter and different in a good way or not? Okay. All right, everybody. I think we're good. Oh, okay. So let's see if this is too hot. All right, I'm gonna do this, even though I might not, shouldn't. All right, let's see. I'm gonna pop this off so you can see what it looks like, but I'm gonna leave it to cool upside down. So I didn't spray this pan. You can use a knife to release the edges, but you shouldn't have to. Oh, okay, there we go. Beautiful. That's a beautiful, and look, that's how stuck on there it is. Okay, but it came right off. All right, we'll take a look at it. This is what the top looks like, heavily cracked, beautiful color. And I'm gonna slice a little bit and then put it back in the bottle just so that we can see. This is not, do not do this. This cake's supposed to sit for a couple hours before you turn it back upright, because gravity. Ooh, okay, it's gonna be good. Nice and bouncy. Okay, here we go. There. It's hot. All right, so let me flip this back over. You're gonna do it this way. Burp, burp on the bottle, and then like that, okay? So this is gonna keep cooling upside down. This allows those air bubbles to dry out and the starches and everything to become rigid. Yeah, that's angel food cake. This other thing is vanilla. Not good. All right, let's see. All right, this is exciting. So this is the vanilla bean paste one that I made. And it's a decent texture. It didn't get the rise. Look at the difference. And this one isn't even done cooling. Look at the difference in height, okay? And you can just see, and that's why it's upside down. This is upside down. It allows the cake to, it's gonna be a little spongy. And it will be a little eggy too if you eat it when it's warm. I mean, it's gonna be completely different when it's cool, but there's the crust. The sugars make it, it's a lot of sugar. A little crunchy crust. Just like when you do a shiny, crackly crust on a brownie, it's because of the high sugar content. That's it. All right. All right, we're gonna give Dave some. Dave, they're all worried you're not gonna get any. Dave's gotta come get some. All right, everyone, have a wonderful evening. Thanks so much for coming. And next week we'll do the lemon curd. And I'll try to throw in some interesting extra stuff because it's my favorite thing. Thank you. Bonsoir. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye. Stay warm. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. More than you